Hear me out. What if Naruto had a dojutsu? And what if Naruto had the Jougan? How would this impact the Naruto story, you may ask? Well, in today's video, that will be covering exactly that. So I do hope you guys are going to enjoy it. And with that said, let's get into the intro and in with the awesome banger.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
We start our story in the perspective of Naruto after he had just finished pulling off one of his infamous pranks of painting the Hokage monuments. Not only that, but Naruto would have also pretty much mind-effed one of the shopkeepers and taken a bunch of things from his shop. Now this man was currently pretty much chasing him down, and this is when his son, who just so happened to be a ninja, would have ended up pretty much running behind Naruto. At this point, Naruto would be jumping from building to building when inevitably he would end up missing one of his jumps and end up falling straight into a dark like alleyway. Now when he does this, he would end up pretty much hitting his head on a pole and then crashing down to the ground as everything would begin getting hazy and Naruto would close his eyes, passing out. Now, today's story is actually going to be a little bit different than my usual ones because this story is actually going to be having two different paths for you guys to each pick your poison and let me know which backstory you guys would like. On my community tab yesterday, actually not a couple days ago, but yesterday I ended up posting something asking for my subscribers to actually help me with this what if and how the story should start off. There were two stories that stood out to me and I honestly could not pick between one or the other, so I decided to literally do both, and you guys could honestly pick which one you guys like more, and that can be your canon. If you guys like this version or the other version more, then go with whatever one you guys like more. Anyways, the first version is by Amir. His YouTube tag will be up on screen, and the second one is going to be by Akiro. Now we're actually going to be doing Akiro, even though I said it was the second one first. And the way that everything plays out from this point is essentially when Naruto would close his eyes and everything becomes blurry, Naruto would begin to have a strange vision. Naruto would essentially wake up in a plane of existence that is incomprehensible to him. Naruto would feel everything, see everything, and know everything all at the same time, as Naruto simply opens his eyes and there would be a godlike figure standing before Naruto. Now Naruto at this point would literally not be able to comprehend exactly what this even is. One thing that he would see are the eyes. The eyes are very, very, very eminent in the creature, and it would have like a black color eye and its pupil would be like white in color, very similar to the one that Boruto has in the anime against the fight with Kawaki in the future after the time skip. And when Naruto sees this, he would simply have the being stare at him as it would manifest an arm and place its hand over Naruto's eye, to which at this point Naruto would he can't move, he can't do anything, he's just existing. Have you guys ever had sleep paralysis where you're sitting there and you can't do a thing? Well, the being would essentially put Naruto in a paralysis state and hold its hand over his eye. As the second that Naruto would pretty much awaken, Naruto would be standing up in the real world with I was about to say Byakugan, but the Jougan activated, and Naruto would see a puddle very close by to himself. So Naruto would walk over towards it, and when Naruto would stare at the puddle, Naruto would see his reflection. When he sees his reflection, he would see himself, and his left eye had changed. It now looked exactly the same as that godlike being's eye, except an imperfected version, I guess you could say. And that was version 1 by Akiro. He was actually the one who ended up making that one. Props to you, man. I really enjoyed that little the way you ended up making things play out. I'm only really going to be taking out the backstory to how he ends up getting the Jougan, but nonetheless, I appreciate it. And if you comment down below, I will definitely consider pinning you down below. So yeah, that being said though, guys, Path B. So the way that Path B plays out was actually created by Amir Ogunfemi. I'm so sorry if I butchered your name, but the way that everything essentially plays out is Naruto would essentially have a flashback to when he was a baby. Naruto at this point would see the destruction that the Nine Tails would be causing in the village, and suddenly a man with like blonde hair would appear before him. He would have marks and all over his face, and he would simply be staring at Naruto's direction. The next thing that Naruto could see was pretty much Boruto holding his hand over Naruto and like literally ripping his eye out and replacing his with Naruto's eyes. And Boruto also, mind you, ended up saving him from the Nine Tails attack. However, not before Minato and Kushina sacrificed their lives to save a baby Naruto. Now, that said, there is literally no flashback or backstory as to how Boruto even got there, so I'm now currently going to have to explain. The way that everything starts is we have a flashback to how it all started with the final battle between Kawaki and Boruto. At this point, Boruto would be on the losing side of the battle, and at a moment of desperation, he would use the interspatial jutsu that the Jougan gives to get away. However, instead of intending to pretty much teleport him to a different village or something like that, because of all the stress and anger that Boruto was feeling at the moment, he would actually end up going back in time, something Boruto did not think he would have the capability of doing. At this point, Boruto was running extremely low on chakra, and the fight was pretty much almost over. So Boruto would decide that if anybody could stop him, it was his father. Boruto had heard so many stories of how great his father was as a shinobi, how he saved the world once before, and Boruto believes that had the fate that befell his father not came down, he would have been the one who rightfully would have ended up saving the shinobi world. And so, he would end up giving his father, baby Naruto, the Jougan. After this, Boruto would pretty much go back to his original timeline. After a couple of seconds, his body would just warp him back, and he would then be killed by Kawaki, as Momoshiki would end up taking over his body, and that would conclude that timeline. Flashing back to the real world, just like in Path A, Naruto would wake up and see his own reflection in a puddle, only to see that the Jougan was flashing in his eye. Now Naruto at this point, this version of Naruto, the one that has the Jougan, would pretty much just end up looking at himself. And keep in mind, guys, there's no scar on his eye quite yet. That actually ends up happening a lot later on in the story, and there's actually going to be a pretty decently interesting plot point as to how that happens. Still haven't thought about it, but let me know down below in the comments if you guys think of something really interesting. That being said, what would end up going down after this is Naruto seeing these flashes of this eye would completely not understand what's going on. However, Naruto would end up pretty much just like getting up and in pain walking over to his house, to which then we're going to be having a couple like a strange time skip to by the time that Naruto is around, like, let's say 10 years old. Naruto at this point would be 10 years old in the middle of the academy, and he would be doing his infamous spar against Sasuke. On this particular day, Sasuke would have ended up throwing a shuriken at Naruto's direction, and in a spontaneous moment, Naruto's Jougan ability would activate. Naruto would see the shuriken coming at him in such a slow motion, seeing the exact target that it was going out, its trajectory, its time of impact. Naruto would stick his finger through the shuriken hole, and it would spin in his hands, as the entire class would just be impressed as to how Naruto caught a shuriken mid-air with one finger. Naruto at this point would snap out of the Jougan state, to which Sasuke would come in and kick Naruto out of the circle, thus winning the battle. A couple more times of this would come basically end up going down, with Naruto pretty much ends up awakening the Jougan at spontaneous moments without having the ability to truly even control it whatsoever, would continue going on over and over until inevitably the day of the graduation exam would go down, and Naruto would end up inevitably fighting against Mizuki to save Iruka's life after Iruka had the Demon Wind Shuriken thrown at him. Now, this time, things would actually end up playing out a whole lot differently. Naruto, instead of activating the multi-shadow clone jutsu, instead his eye, due to sensing the imminent danger before him of Mizuki, would end up pretty much activating, and Mizuki would come in with a kunai, as Mizuki would end up pretty much slashing at the direction of Naruto's eye, and it would end up pretty much cutting the skin, leaving Naruto that famous scar. Psych, y'all really thought? Absolutely not. Mizuki was not going to be the one who gives it to him. What would actually end up happening is Naruto, like a boss, would end up actually dodging Mizuki's slice, grabbing Mizuki's wrist, and pretty much flipping him onto Mizuki's back. As Naruto, at this point, his eye would pretty much flash electricity through it, and Naruto would proceed to pretty much punch down at Mizuki's face, just immediately knocking Mizuki out. Iruka, seeing this, would be like, "Naruto, you beat him." And when Naruto turned towards Iruka's direction, Iruka would see a brief flash of the Jougan before Naruto's dojutsu would deactivate. At this point, what would end up going down is Iruka would end up promoting Naruto to be a genin, and Naruto would then go on to be placed onto Team 7, to which they would have their introductions, and they would then end up meeting at the bell test area for their little examination. The way that this all ends up playing out is basically the same way that it does in canon. Now, honestly, I could sit here and say that Naruto masters his Jougan at an early age, or that it ends up spontaneously appearing due to Kakashi fighting against Naruto. However, realistically speaking, the real changes to the story will not be having a huge impact, or Naruto will not be fully mastering the Jougan until at least Shippuden. So most of the activations of the Jougan from this point forward are going to be varied and just completely random. So nothing ends up happening here. Team 7 would still end up passing due to Sakura pretty much feeding Naruto, and then Sasuke, no, due to Sasuke feeding Naruto, and then Sakura pretty much chiming in, being like, "Here, Naruto." And so the Team 7 would pretty much end up passing the Genin bell test. That said, they would then proceed to go on to 2 weeks worth of just garbage missions. And this is when one day Naruto would pretty much wake up in a mindscape to see that figure, or a figure, not exactly the same figure from plot point A, but a Otsutsuki member. One that we know very well, but one that Naruto should not know whatsoever. Naruto would see a brief silhouette of a figure of a man, but it would then fade as all he was able to see with his Byakugan-like eyes. And when Naruto sees that, he would think what that was. However, Naruto has no time to think about those things because he just now had to go catch a cat mid-air, and Naruto would do so, getting scratched up in the face tons. At this point, Naruto would begin walking home, as this version of Naruto would actually end up deciding that he wants to have a little bit of a drip change. So when Naruto's walking through the village, he would end up seeing a sweater on display from a random shop. Naruto goes over to it, and using the money that he's earned from his couple of last missions, he would end up buying himself a fully black hoodie with a little pocket inside of it and a pretty comfy hoodie on the back. It seemed pretty durable, and it was just all black. It was pretty cool, honestly. He also saw a matching set of pants to go with it, and Naruto immediately upon seeing this would decide that honestly he really likes it. So the next time that Team 7 would end up seeing Naruto, when is pretty much the time that they end up meeting Tazuna in the office and Tazuna insults Team 7, they would actually see Naruto and be like, "Yo, that actually, doesn't look half bad." Naruto at this point doesn't actually look exactly like what he looks like in the original story, because this version of Naruto, his hair would be a little longer, so it would have an effect where it kind of gets in his face a little bit, and it just has a really cool look to it. Naruto wears his hoodie at all times now, and that's pretty much the only thing that Naruto wears nowadays. That being said, what ends up going down is Team 7 would be assigned the C rank mission, and the team would end up meeting with Kakashi the very next day by the gates. Now, it's at this current moment that the entire team would end up pretty much be told that they need to bring this man to the land of the waves and make sure that he builds his bridge in peace. To which the team would agree, and like I said, the next day they would end up meeting everybody pretty much back with Tazuna. At this point, they would end up making their way towards the land of the waves, when suddenly they would be attacked by the twin demon brothers. Now, when the demon brothers would end up inevitably arriving, Naruto's Jougan would activate due to the danger around. And when the brothers would end up actually rushing at Naruto, this time, instead of actually being impaled by a poisonous kunai, Naruto would be able to actually react to the movement and see the second brother pretty much coming right at him. Naruto would receive a huge buff in terms of physical ability, catching the brother's hand and then twisting it, completely breaking the wrist, before jumping up into the air and doing a split kick. The infamous Uchiha split kick, causing both of the brothers to be taken out before Sasuke was even able to react. Sasuke, seeing this, would pretty much inner monologue to himself, thinking that Naruto's like a totally different person. Now, none of the team was actually able to see Naruto's Jougan activate, but Naruto, feeling the power and having the Jougan active for a little longer than normal, would feel this insane sensation of overwhelming just power going through his body. And so Naruto would, instead of being told scaredy cat by Sasuke, Sasuke would pretty much give him a head nod, respecting Naruto, or not respecting him, but as a sign of respect. And Naruto would then proceed to like look at Kakashi, to which Kakashi would then question Tazuna, and moments later they would end up pretty much rushing in to the forest, where they would inevitably end up encountering a white bunny. Now, Sakura this time would be the one to throw a kunai at it, sensing weird movement around them, and everybody seeing that it was a snow bunny would end up actually laughing at Sakura, Naruto included, to which at this point, a thick fog would end up pretty much enveloping all of them, to which a giant blade would come at their direction, and Kakashi, pretty much having his heightened senses, would end up telling the team to dodge. Everybody would do so, and Zabuza Momoichi would appear right before them, before saying, "Kakashi Hatake." However, ladies and gentlemen, that is where I'm going to be concluding What If Naruto Had the Jougan Part 1. If you guys want to see the fight against Zabuza with a Naruto having the abilities of the Jougan, then you guys are actually going to be having to smash a total like goal of whatever jutsu. If you guys don't get that reference, it's pretty much when Jiraiya was training with Lord Third, and he just threw shurikens everywhere and called it the whatever jutsu. So yeah. And in homage to that, the like goal for today's video is literally just going to be whatever you guys feel like. If you enjoyed today's video, definitely leave a like. If you didn't, let me know what I can improve. And in case you guys have any suggestions for what powers the Jougan should be giving Naruto access to, definitely comment them down below. One thing that I'm going to be very, very, very adamant about is I will be giving Naruto a Susanoo-like ability. I don't want to hear it. Even if the Jougan doesn't ever end up getting this, I need Naruto to have that. It's going to be so cool. But with that being said though, guys, that has pretty much been it for me today. I love each and every single one of you guys. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.